First video, guys. Take it easy on me. I don't think Yuji is the vessel for the merger, although I don't think that's far off. Remember in Bleach how Aizen was very displeased with the Vizards and he called them failed Arankars because they simply donned hollow masks and didn't show him anything new. It's very similar to the way Kenjaku talks to Choso and how he's generally more pleased with Yuji as a creation and how he holds Sukuna in such high regard because he's not a human or a cursed spirit. He's something new. I've always said Sukuna is such a menace because he doesn't have anyone like Hashirama to push him around. He's basically like a Madara that's just allowed to go around, nobody to hold him down. So first we have to ask ourselves, what is up with Yuji's body? From day one, we've seen him achieve superhuman feats that challenge the imagination. And while around the time of Yuji's creation, both before and after in our world, we got a lot of characters who were born without the energy system of their world. These characters always end up having some form of superior strength compared to the average person in the place that they're born in. So, what they usually always boils down to is them being born with special bodies. And in my opinion, Yuji is no different. Prior to the start of the series, Yuji's body must have been altered in some way by Kenjaku. That's probably where he gets all his superhuman strength from. Now, I'm pretty sure we all thought that, but whenever this topic is brought up, one of the things I never hear anybody talk about is Heavenly, where Yuji's obviously Jin Itadori's son. They look very alike. Born through Kaori's body, which is being possessed by Kenjaku, so his cursed energy and perhaps her cursed energy is mixed in there. So maybe Yuji doesn't even have a heavenly restricted body, but just something akin to it. Another character that this reminds me of is Mr. Sinister from the X-Men. He's this guy who's obsessed with Cyclops, Scott Summers, and Jean Grey. He's obsessed with having their genes and putting them together to create something new because he believes that their genes together would create the ultimate mutant. Literally, when Jean died in the Dark Phoenix saga, he creates a clone called Madeline Pryor, and he just sends her out into the world, right? And his only objective really is just to have Madeline Pryor get banged by Cyclops, which happens, and that's how Cable is born. Then in an alternate timeline, he takes Cable and clones him, and creates this guy called Strife, and he gives him to Apocalypse. This is in the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Then there's another timeline, although this could be the Age of Apocalypse timeline as well, and I could be wrong, where he takes the genes from Jean Grey herself and Cyclops, and he creates this new super psychic Superman. His name's X-Man, but yeah, he's also a product of them being put together. So you literally have like three versions of the same character like running around, all very very different characters though. Also, you might not know this, but Cyclops has like four brothers, and Gambit was meant to be one of them. So I guess you could say like five brothers. Anyway, tangent aside. Now, regarding his curse technique, I'm not gonna lie. Initially, I thought it was the fire arrows, and what made me think this is when Sukuna says the infamous "fuga" and he opens the black box, which is what I think is happening. So I just figured that the black box is the part in your brain where your curse technique is stored. Well, this kind of was confirmed to me when Sukuna mentioned something like that in his battle with Gojo, and he talked about the black box in your brain, and so I just kind of assumed that that was Yuji's curse technique, but right now I'm kind of 50-50 with it. I'm not 100% sure. Although when you think about it, it probably does make sense because he didn't have to say that for Megami because Megami's box, I guess, was probably already open. But when you think about it, this might contradict my heavenly restriction theory. Although if we go along the lines of saying Kenjaku messed around with the process and replicated it in a different way, then maybe not so much. His brothers are half human, half cursed, and he was the vessel for the natural disaster realm in Sukuna, so he's going to be anything but normal. However, as the recent chapters have popped up, I've kind of doubted that he would actually get a curse technique, but I feel as though his reserves will continue to increase and he will learn something new. From what we've seen so far, he has immaculate practice in curse energy control, from the divergent fist to black flashes of will. So I think that it might be something along the lines of transmuting his curse energy trait to counter his opponents and whatever they can come up with, kind of like Maharaga, but something a little different. Or maybe he assimilates all the other death wound paintings that he's eaten and makes something new. and he would use the curse energy trait more like Kashimo. In fact, initially, the first video I was going to do like a year ago was Kashimo as a fully realized Yuji, but after he got turned to ribbons, I think people would find that title laughable. I still love Kashimo because I love hand to hand. I can't stand technique or like jutsu spammers. If you've been reading manga for a while, you eventually start to notice the beauty of connectivity. The stories take inspiration from each other and evolve into something new. Some people call this copying and get so personal and upset when you compare series to each other. And some people do it to be disrespectful, but this is such a narrow minded point of view. Probably stems from Western views on storytelling and how everything's a capitalist competition. Like how in the comic book industry, Fawcett Comics, they had to stop publishing the original Captain Marvel because DC said it was too similar to Superman and they sued. These are the kind of things that um, lead to this topic being a very antagonizing one. It's the culture that we're brought up in, and I've noticed for a lot of JJK fans, this is the first foray into like weekly manga. So, here to hold your hand, guide you to the fun side of storytelling. So, while Gege is one of those authors who wears his inspiration on his sleeve, you always hear him talk about like Bleach or Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho or just anything Togashi in general. Sometimes he might mention Naruto. Sometimes, as a writer, you're not going to talk about every single thing that inspires you. It will legit, just take too long. You can't list out everything. Sometimes the character is inspired by a series, but his actions are inspired by another character. If you've ever written a story or tried to do one or just imagine it, you just realize that you kind of just make like your own version of stuff that you like. So right now I'm about to compare Yuji to two other series that I've seen. They're kind of out there, so it probably isn't. Probably it's not. It's probably not something you're used to. Probably not something you've heard of. One of them is a really popular series, and one of them is kind of like a little under the radar. So this series is called Testament of New Sister Devil. It's kind of like it's pretty weird. It's a pervy anime, but um there's a lot of mythology to it. There's a lot of decent storytelling. It's not the best, but the lore is pretty good. So the main character is quite comparable to Yuji in a way. His name is Basara Tojo, and he is part human, part dragon, part demon, and part god. And in that series, he's not like just a regular human. So there's like three clans: the God clan or the Angel clan, the Demon clan, who originally used to be part of the God clan, but then became enemies to them, and the Hero clan, which are like superhumans. They're like basically like holy knights. So they do things. They have like magic spells, or they make contracts with like spirits of nature and things of that nature. Some of them use ki, but ki is very rare. And the main character, his oddly enough, his dad's name is Jin as well. His dad got swallowed by a dragon, and then he ate the innards of the dragon, and then he kind of got dragon powers. And then he has two moms. One's a god, and one is a demon. So just it kind of just reminds me of Yuji in a way, like just on a surface level, like how the triple parentage. I think that's definitely something to that, and how it affects his body and how it will develop his technique and his abilities later. Second anime I wanted to bring up is Fairy Tail. I'm sure we all know Fairy Tail, or at least the majority of you do. It doesn't have the best reputation in the anime space, but it's just one of those anime that people decide to pick on, like kind of just more than they did other shows. But it is pretty decent. It does fall off at a certain bit, but it's pretty good. The main character Natsu is super interesting. And speaking of him, he is a person that reminds me the most of Yuji. Not only are they both like Yuji's not really hot headed, to be fair. I guess the only similarity they have, like physically, is the fact that they have pink hair. But also they've got a relation to the final villain of both their series. So this is kind of what led me to think about the heavenly restriction theory. Basically, in the end, we find out that the main character Natsu is related to the main villain Zerf. He's his younger brother who was killed in the past, but then Zeref, through like using ancient magic and forbidden techniques, brought him back as a demon. But we don't find out Natsu as a demon until like the last couple of arcs, like probably in like the last three arcs. I think there's like the Tartarus arc and a couple of arcs after that. Yeah, but what makes it pretty interesting, aside from the fact that they both have pink hair, they've both been kind of altered by a character who kind of seems to love them. It also kind of makes me lean a little towards the, Yuji is Sukuna's twin brother theory. It might be that, just because, like, if you think about it, Maki and Mai were twins, and Maki got the body and Mai got the cursed energy. Like, that also seems to be kind of like a prevailing thing in anime, like the body and something else, like being kind of like of equal value, like be your soul or your chakra or your spirit or something of that nature. So another possibility could be, what if Yuji is the physical body of Sukuna's heavenly restricted brother, while Sukuna was born with the cursed energy, and maybe at some point he ate or killed his brother, and that's what allowed him to evolve. Probably maybe that's why he has four arms and he's also super strong. But that's kind of like out there. That's kind of like out there. But I don't think it's like it's not possible for Sukuna for that to be a thing with Sukuna and Yuji, for Yuji to be his twin brother, his twin brother's body, which had heavenly restriction, that has now kind of been mucked around with Kinjaku or by Kinjaku, and he's added some cursed energy into it, or like a special kind of or cursed energy, or he's created a heavenly vessel. Yeah, I guess you could call it that, like a heavenly transfigured vessel for cursed objects. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I think we could get a discussion going. It'll be really fun to hear some of you guys' theories, because theory crafting is really fun, but it's also like good to have insight into how other people see the series. Please try to be respectful in the comments. Thank you.
Talk about Kenjaku for a bit. We don't really know much about him, other than the fact that he was an ally of Sukuna's, a stain on the Camel Clan's history, a dude that hops bodies and conducts like countless experiments. Although there's a few things we can infer from his goals, and that's essentially evolution, and to be more specific, the evolution of Jujutsu. So in a way, it's very similar to the philosophy of Darwinism, which is and Darwinism is a philosophy that involves like evolution through modification. So it's basically like how in nature things would adapt physically to, or rather would modify themselves physically to adapt to their circumstances, basically. Earlier I compared Kenjaku to Mr. Sinister from the X-Men, and the more I delve into this, the more uncanny it's going to get. Get it? Uncanny X-Men. Uncanny. Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to spoil a recent X-Men comic event. It was called The Sins of Sinister. It's not really a spoiler, but like it'll give you a good idea of perhaps maybe what Kenjaku's dealings have been. Now, I'm pretty sure, especially like with the resurgence of like the X-Men show and stuff, people know who Mr. Sinister is, right? I mentioned it earlier in the video. But basically the Mr. Sinister we know, hey kitty, stop that. Sorry, my cat's scratching in the video. Basically the Mr. Sinister we know is like a clone. So essentially Mr. Sinister is a clone of a guy called Nathaniel Essex. Now, this whole time we thought Nathaniel Essex was Mr. Sinister, but it turns out that in the past, Nathaniel Essex, he became obsessed with like Darwinism. He was a colleague of Charles Darwin, actually, and he through that he found out about like mutants and stuff like that. So what he did was he made multiple clones of himself, and he left each of them to master a field of like stuff in the Marvel universe, and then essentially they'd upload it to like a motherboard, which would keep all the knowledge. So for Mr. Sinister, I believe his field was mutants. There's another dude, I think it's Dr. Stasis. He dealt with post-humans. Mother Righteous. Post-humans are like evolved humans. Mother Righteous, she was magic. And then there's another dude, Stellaris Orbis, or Orbis Stellaris, something like that. And he dealt with like the space stuff. So in JJK, we don't have that many branches, so it's mostly just cursed energy and the things that fall under that. So for example, the cursed painting wombs. Kenjaku might have seen them as failures, but objectively, they are not failures. Choso is essentially a perfect camo. So like he can spam the blood techniques and not worry about passing out from like low blood, or more like he'd only pass out from curse energy over usage. So essentially, that was Kenjaku's. It might not have been his first attempt, but he was trying to work with combining humans and cursed spirits to get good results. Now, there are other areas of Jujutsu that he was involved with. For example, the reincarnating of souls from the people in the past and then bonding them to like cursed objects and then having other people devour them and having those souls take over their bodies, basically. So essentially, Kenjaku's been delving into like a lot of soul research and maybe that's what he's trying to do, right? Maybe like beyond Jujutsu is like soul jutsu or something, or like soul manipulation. Maybe that's like he's trying to get to like the basis of life. He essentially has all the cheat codes and all the hacks of Jujutsu, and with this knowledge, he's realized he can take it even further. I suppose that's why he's not impressed with Yuta, and if you think about it, it kind of makes a little sense. He's basically hating because Yuta is essentially like a prototype of what he's trying to achieve. But I suppose like in copying other people's techniques, it's like there's a hard limit. For example, with Yuta, he can only like spam techniques for about 5 minutes, right, in his domain. Well, spam them. He can still use other people's techniques, but in his domain, he can just spam all the different techniques he's copied. But without his domain, he still kind of needs to store the techniques in Rika. So essentially, it's like Rika is this super hard drive connected to this super battery, which kind of like they feed into each other. So like Yuta is the battery, because we know that Yuta probably, aside from Sukuna, and we now know why, Yuta has the most cursed energy. So with that, combining with Rika, then you have a monster. But Kenjaku's trying to like bring it further because Rika's a cursed spirit. Yuta's a human being. They're working together. Choso is like a fusion of the cursed womb paintings are like a fusion of humanity and cursed spirit. So I guess he's just trying to take it even further than that for some reason, like with the merger and everything. Like he doesn't just want to replicate other people's techniques. He wants to take it even further. And that, earlier in the video I mentioned that Yuji might have a heavily restricted body, but because, the video was recorded like 3 months ago. But with recent developments, like with the latest chapters and everything, I'm almost 100% certain that he actually has a heavily restricted body. And you know how there's a question people always ask about why didn't Geto go for Toji's body? And I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why, or not Geto, Kenjaku. And I'm pretty sure that's the reason why he didn't do that, because he knew he'd lose out to the body. Just because he's been doing all that soul research, which is why even when Geto's body grabbed him by the neck, like trying to stop him, and was crying and stuff, he was excited, and he was like, look, Mahito, like the body is the soul, essentially. So he definitely knows like a lot. We do know that, obviously, but the more you think about it, it's like, yo, how many things has this guy been involved in? And now, in the latest chapters, essentially, we basically discover that Yuji's dad is the reincarnation of Sukuna's twin brother's soul, who he ate in the womb. Now, take this with like a grain of salt, like a serious grain of salt, but I don't know. There seems to be something regarding Sukuna and twins. Like, we already knew that from the mythology, right? And essentially, what if it's the same with Yuji? Like, what if there's a deeper connection between Yuji and Mahito than simply just, what if that I am you speech? It's a bit deeper than it seems initially, because for one, Kenjaku's laid all these plans out, right? He has all these different plans on how to achieve the calling games and how to bring them forth, and everything seems to be going according to plan. But how did he know Mahito would spawn? Mahito is like a cursed spirit, right? And he's supposed to be a cursed spirit of like human hatred for other humans. But how did he know he'd have idol transfiguration? How did he know he'd be able to use techniques like the maximum Uzumaki? It seems a little suspicious. Now, what if like cursed spirits can be like formed if you give them like a catalyst, basically? So what if Yuji had a twin as well, and Mahito is like the remnants of that put into something, because he's stitched up, right? It seems like it would kind of make sense. But regarding Yuji, let's talk about him, his body, and his techniques, for example. So And so regarding Yuji, and this has come up a lot recently, but in the first chapter, Megami compares him to Maki in that like he's a physical beast, and I'm pretty sure now this is like obvious foreshadowing essentially, because heavenly restriction doesn't necessarily take away your cursed energy, like to zero, like we mentioned before in the beginning of the video. Maki at the beginning of this series, she only had a little cursed energy, but she still had a heavily restricted body, and she was still considered a beast. I'm pretty sure you still can't see curses even though you have small bits of cursed energy, because she still had to use the glasses. And I can't remember if Yuji could see cursed spirits in the beginning, or if it was like when that really dangerous cursed spirit came and then he could see it, but that could also apply to him as well. And I'm pretty sure that he's heavily restricted, or I'm thinking that's becoming it's kind of more of a prevalent theory in the fandom. But what if for him his heavenly restriction works a little different? So with Mechamaru, we have a heavenly restriction that's like it gives him like a corpse for a body basically, but immeasurable cursed energy. Like he just got so much cursed energy. But low key, that's not a good deal, because did he have as much cursed energy as like Yuta or Gojo? Probably not. So not the best deal. And then we've got the other kind, which is like the physical kind, which essentially you lock off a person's cursed energy in exchange for like a large boost of physical power. Now, like we said, not everybody goes to zero for that, so it's probably just like for a way to make like average sorcerers, or people who would be average sorcerers, like give them a little bit of a hack in life, just because Jujutsu Society is all based on like merit and what you can do. So it's probably a thing that people came up with to make their not so strong bloodlines like stand a chance against these other people. Now for Yuji, I'm thinking he might have Kenjaku might have applied a different kind of cursed heavenly restriction to his body, just because his body is like he's probably like a death womb painting that has a heavenly restriction. So yeah, that's try and stick with me for a bit. What if Yuji's heavenly restriction works by denying him what would have been his own curse technique? Maybe the anti-gravity system, like his mother, or maybe he would have gotten his own version of that technique, and who knows, maybe it would have been called like a gravity system or something like that. But anyways, what if in exchange for being denied a curse technique, he would become a super strong like cursed object who would be able to house powerful beings with powerful techniques? That's probably why Kenjaku did all the research on how to reincarnate souls, like other souls, into body. So he'd get powerful techniques and a mastery of cursed energy, like complete knowledge of cursed energy, almost like I don't know what word to use, but just like a cursed energy savant, which he essentially is, because I don't know if you noticed, but in the latest chapter, he hit like 7 black flashes in a row, 8 in total, but like seven in a row. So that definitely, the mastery of cursed energy and just being able to immerse himself in the abilities of others after experiencing their cursed energy. What if that is what he's trying to do? So since Yuji is like a cursed object, he would eventually have the cursed energy of whoever he housed imprint on him, and that way he would acquire their techniques. So this is essentially what's happening with Sukuna. We can see also that he's eaten his siblings. There's a lot of like parallels between Yuji and Sukuna. So let's talk about actual curse techniques. Earlier in the video, I said the black box, I believe, is Sukuna opening Yuji's technique. Maybe it's a little different now. Maybe that's where he houses the various techniques of the people he's eaten. And I've heard that theory come about a lot, and it would kind of make sense for Sukuna, because I don't know. I'm not. This video is already super long, so I'm probably just gonna like stop it pretty soon. But his techniques seem to like be different elements. So when Yaoyorozu created the thunder thingy for him, Kami Toke, I think that's what it was called, the thunder spear or whatever. I don't know. Did Sukuna have cursed objects in the past? Because we have seen him with those, but like, how like cursed objects, if a person's if a person uses a cursed object enough, their technique imprints on it. What if, I don't know, honestly, I don't even know where I'm going with that, but Sukuna seems to have multiple techniques. Like he's got a thunder spear, cleave and dismantle are essentially like what? Wind blades or something like that, maybe. And with a fire arrow. Now, initially, I kind of don't want to attribute Sukuna's curse technique to be multiple things or like storing people's curse techniques. Initially, my initial belief was that if you look at all the special grades, they seem to command something like almost conceptual, like but more like a fundamental force. Gojo controls like space essentially. Like we can throw all the complications aside. We kind of know that he just warps space. Yuda's a little different. He just like infinite energy essentially. He's just got a lot of energy. What's her face? Yuki. Sorry, I was about to call her Maki for some reason, but Yuki, she controls mass, and through that she was able to control like black holes and like mass density, you know, stuff like that, electromagnetism. It's kind of Kashimo, but Kashimo's like something else. He has electromagnetic like ability, so yeah. So I thought Sukuna would fall under like nuclear, so like nuclear fission to be a bit more precise. It could be fusion, but I was thinking more like nuclear fission, where it's like splitting atoms essentially, and the energy required to do that could create explosions, which is what I thought would be his fire arrows. It was just him like kind of refining his techniques in a way, because that kind of really, to me, that really explained dismantle and cleave. But maybe someone with a bit more of a physics background could come say if that would be pretty apt. And thematically though, him having multiple techniques, you know, half of them coming from his brother and half of them coming from him. Maybe his brother had lightning powers and he had fire powers. Maybe his brother had cleave and he had dismantle. Maybe that's how it was meant to be, since they say twins are treated the same with cursed energy. Thematically, it would make sense if he had multiple techniques, because the way I'm seeing it, Yuji's probably going to have multiple techniques. He already has blood manipulation. He's got the shrine. In the latest chapters, we've seen that he's got the shrine. If you're familiar with Gege's game, you know he loves older anime. He loves older shonen. I'm almost 100% willing to bet Yuji's got some like bone powers or like some flaming bone powers or something like that. Those thingies on his arm, they could just be like a manifestation of like bones, because aside from that, the cursed womb death paintings are all named after like different stages of like cursed womb of like the body decomposing, and one of those is like burning bones. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, and then he still acquired his mother's like anti-gravity technique. It would kind of make sense if in Yuji's own shrine it's got like bone, blood. Yeah, no, trust me, that seems to make so much sense. Bone, blood, soul, things like that. It kind of reminds me of Black Clover a little. You know, that's going to be a little blasphemous to some people, but yeah. Again, like I said, this video could go on forever. I could keep going. I also have a theory that if it's not my dog snoring in the background. I have a theory that if Megami like kind of gets out of Sukuna's body, let's say Sukuna fuses with the merger, that is a possibility. And then Megami's like, what if? Okay, I'll say this for another video, but you know how like the Shikigami they transfer their powers when they die, like they pass them on. What if eventually what makes the 10 Shadows technique so powerful is that all those techniques get passed on to the user of the technique when they die? But yeah, maybe I'll say that for another video if I ever end up editing or making one. So yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you for the engagement. I'm looking forward to making more content, and yeah, let's see where the story goes.